Common sources of risks for projects. My name is Guilherme and I'm a project management expert. I help professionals and companies to develop their project management skills. How do I do that in practice? Well, it can be in several different ways, but I help with training to provide them with the right knowledge, of course, to execute the tasks. I provide mentoring to help them to develop their skills. For example, I have a person that's moving from a project support officer position to a project manager to a junior project manager position. So I help her to organize her project, to understand priorities, and make sure that she can move forward with that and be successful with her project. Or I also help companies with different types of consulting there. Because if your goal is to develop your project management skills, my goal is to support you in this journey there. Don't forget, of course, that this content here is part of the warm up for the Project Management Summit. Project Management Summit, it's a free event I'm going to make to help you to progress, to help you to develop your project management skills. So we are going to be 3 episodes there with a lot of content, with exercises there, and also for people completing all the steps there are to complete all the project management summit. They are going to get a certificate in the end. They're confirming that they completed the event and the number of hours of the training. Everything again is free. You just need to click here in the link in the description of this video and subscribe for the Project Management Summit. Then I'm going to send you the details by mail. I'm going to send content by mail. And of course, if you can, make sure that you join the WhatsApp group because there the information flow is usually it's easier there. And of course, don't forget also to like and share this video because then more people can learn project management, but also you help my channel to grow. And of course, that helps in our relationship there. That I'm going to be very happy if you can help me with that. The topic I'm going to talk about today is common source of risks of any type of project. One of the key points to be successful with project management is risk management there. What's risk management? Let's first start from the beginning. What's a risk? Risk is always based on uncertainty. So risk that's it's always an event that's going to happen in the future there. Very important. It's always an uncertainty. There's always a future event because if something that happens in the past, it's an issue, but it's not a risk anymore. Very simple example of that. Weather forecast. What's the weather forecast for tomorrow? You can say it's going to rain, it's going to be a sunny day. If it's already during the day, it's already raining, there's no forecast anymore. It's already raining, it's a fact. So that's a very important distinction because there's a lot of people that they clearly don't understand what's a risk and what's the difference between a risk and issue. Risk is always something uncertainty, that's something in the future that's going to happen with your project. An issue that's of course something already in the past, already happened, then you need to solve it. Then you move for a problem solving and this kind of stuff. So a good project manager there always good risk management. So what's a very important step in any risk management process if you want to succeed there? It's anticipation because if we are talking about something that might happen in the future and might have a negative impact in your project, what do you want? You want to anticipate this possible event there to try to avoid it, to try to mitigate the risk, to try to transfer the risk, or either way you accept it because the impact is minimal for the project there. So what you want to do is you want to anticipate. Of course, if you've been following me for a while, you already know that projects are go across industry, meaning that you are going to have projects there in all types of different industry, construction, engineering in general, product development, manufacturing, supply chain. You have marketing projects, you have HR projects, there's all types of projects there. For example, the Olympic Games that happened this year in Paris, this was a project to organize the Olympic Games. The World Cup, it's a project. A movie, it's a project. A new manufacturing line is a project. A new car is a project. A new iPhone is a project. So, with all those different types of things, that's why you see projects across industries. And that's, of course, why you see projects as a skill that's high in demand, also for managers, and also that's why you skill, being a skill that's high in demand. That's of course why it's good that you develop. That will help in your career, that will help in your business, and with anything that you want to do it. So risks can vary a lot from type of projects to of projects. But what I'm going to explain to you here today is very common sources that I can guarantee to you that if you're working a project right now, if you look in those places, you're going to find something, some types of risks at least that you're going to be able to identify. The first one that I'm going to talk with you, it's probably one of my favorite ones. I've built a lot of things in my career based on that. Those are called interfaces or external dependencies. Let me give you an example. The first project that I was the project manager myself was an expansion for the power supply of a mining company. So you can imagine the power supply, so it's a substation there. The mining was already operating, so they had, I believe, at the point two bays. A bay is just a piece of the substation there. And because the mining was growing, they want to increase their production capacity there. They were buying more equipment, then they need more power. They need more energy for that. So they need to expand this power supply, this substation there, with an extra bay there that will provide more power capacity. If you don't know what I'm talking about, to making a very, very simple way, think about your house. You have circuit breakers there, and let's say that you want to put a new air conditioning there. You need to add a new circuit breaker there to be able to supply power for this new air conditioning. Very, very, very basic analogy to understand that. So the first thing that I did in a project like that, because of course I was already working with project management for a couple of years at this stage, was to check the interface because this is a big source of risks. And while checking interface there, what do I do to check interface in a project like that? And that we are going to see, you can use exactly the same thing for a construction project, for example. Well, I check the design and say, okay, this is the design from the existing plant. You have one bay, two bays. This is where I'm going to put the two bays. Then that's, for example, I need to pass cables through here. I need to install a panel here, something like that. And I check everything in the design. So I study the scope of the project. And what I did, the soonest possibility that I had, I went to the site to check, okay, how the site looks like. Let me check what's in the design to check what's in the site. Why did I do that? Because working this type of business, those were engineering, procurement, and construction projects, you see that a lot of times the execution was slightly different or had to be adapted on site, and people they forget to update the design. In this situation, they had other constraints. So I got on site there and say, very nice. You want me to put an equipment right here, to install an equipment right here. But there's another structure already here. So I cannot do that. Then you say, oh, you want me to pass a cable to this place. I cannot pass a cable to this place because there's another structure blocking the passage of the cable. For example, this one was very nice. There was a medium, very nice because of maybe it's just for me because I'm an engineer and I like sometimes that technical stuff. There was medium voltage panels installed there, so I think the voltage there was I don't remember exactly the number. I think it was 30,000 volts, and they were like two lines, one line here and one line here. And as part of the scope of my project, I would supply some additional columns there, some additional panels there, and they want to make an electrical connection between the lines that would go like a kind of connection at the top. What was the problem? Because the company that did the installation, they did not align. So think about the two columns here. They did not align this properly. So one of the columns was slightly with an angle, and I think this angle was, I think, 3 or 4 degrees. Not that long, you can imagine. But what happens if you have, I don't know, 15 meters? Well, 3 degrees, it's going to be misalignment. Of course, in the end, that would lead to few centimeters difference there. And of course, but because this was a fixed connection, meaning that we were putting a bar with a fixed connection that to need to be bolted in both sides, yeah, maybe 3-4 centimeters. That's the difference between being able to make the connection or not. So that's a big source of interfaces. If you are working a project that's using an existing construction project, EPC project, that's working in an existing plant, or so all the interfaces, everything that's existing there, it's a source of risk. And why I'm saying that this is one of the things that I base my a lot of a lot of the visibility that I based in that I got in the company there. So this guy is a very good project manager, was just taking care of those interfaces. Because if you say, oh, but that's straightforward, but most people don't do that. So I'll take a new project. I'll say, okay, I need to connect. This is something existing. Then I'm going to say, okay, let me see what's the existing. Then I will find it. And I did that in the first project. I did that like in the last project I managed it in Brazil. The last EPC project was an implementation of wind farm. Again, part of the wind farm needs to be connected with the power grid in Brazil, and that was an existing place. Then I say, same thing, look to the design, go to the place and say, okay, you want me to pass cables here? It's not possible. This tray is already full, or there's a block here, or they because of there's an interference there, they had to build in the other direction. And there's all those kinds of places that I could raise as anticipation for the risk. Why I'm talking about anticipation again? Because everything that I was doing there, all those things that I was doing there, I was doing months before the test had to be executed. Because you can imagine if you are trying to execute the task and then something happens so you cannot do it, and until you figure out what's happening there, if you need an additional material, if you need an additional device for the design team, that will take time. And that might block important tasks, that might block your critical path, and that might end up delaying your entire project. So checking those interfaces, they were critical there. For example, another example for a totally different type of project to see how those interfaces or interdependence, external interdependence, they are quite important. For example, fast forward already, I was already here in Europe managing a project there. So this project is started as a small project. Not a small project, but it was a project I had to develop two products for a big OEM in the automotive business there. And it ended up that starts to develop and it became an entire program supporting four different platforms if I remember well. And then I had to, from two products, I ended up having to develop seven different products with different timelines, different requirements, different teams, and so on. What was big interdependencies there, or big interfaces to be checked there? First one, was for mass production, so there was a manufacturing site in Poland that you have to produce that. Because of the forecast, the plan was to use an existing line for that the company had there, and this existing line that should support all those seven different products plus whatever was running in normal production. What's a typical constraint in an interface that you need to manage in a situation like that? Well, if I have a timeline with the strict deliverables that I need to provide samples to the customer and this kind of stuff, I need to confirm that the timeline is available for me. Because let's assume, given a random date, say, on 15th of July, I need to deliver samples to the customer. So 15th of July, if you take, I don't know, 1 week of shipment there, depending where you want to ship, of course, that means that likely 1 week before the due date, the production needs to be ready. And then, of course, in the other hand, you had another constraint from when the suppliers can deliver the product, the components. So you have a small window to operate there because you cannot start to build anything before you get the components from the supplier, and you have a deadline from the customer there. So you need to manage this window. But if the line was not available for my project or for my programs, it was not feasible for me to deliver anything to the customer. So what would I do in a case like that? Well, I would share every month with the plant a forecast for the entire program for the next 6 months. And of course, for some stuff, I was not fully sure, but I would place holders. This is when you're going to get stuff. This is how many products that you need to build, and this is when you need to ship it out. And I would update it, and I'll keep going and aligning with the plan in the factory. Because there was another customer ordering parts, and of course, if you work with production side, production always wants to produce because that's what they are paid for. Their operations there, the customer is ordering parts, they want to sell it. And so this had to be very well planned. But another very important thing, that's why I mentioned that was a program. I had 7 different products with different contact points in the customer, different requirements, and so on. So I had to make sure that those 7 different products production also would make sense in the windows I had, because I could not promise to the customer that I would deliver all the 7 products in the same week. Why? Because, well, it's a manufacturing line. In this case, they could produce one type, one item per time, meaning that you need to plan well advanced. And I had to communicate with the customer, say, dear customer, you want samples at 15th of July here. However, your other projects, blah, 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 that's considered a priority for your company, is already requesting the same deadline for me. So I need you both to align it and to define, because I cannot support both at the same time. So the customer, although of course the customer don't like the prioritization, they would appreciate a lot. They say, oh, this person is really thinking ahead to avoid that we mitigate risks. Because if in the last minute both of them they don't get the samples, then they have a conflict. If we can align around it, we can align what types of activities we can do it, and they could align also the plan for their side. So this is very important when you are thinking about interfaces, external dependencies, because if this type of thing does not happen, you are going to get in trouble. And fasting forward to give you another example, working in the semiconductor industry. Again, new product, new program there. More than 60 types of products involved in the program that I was handling there. And there was one part of the test that should be existing, but because of some company decisions there, this part of test was being transferred from one manufacturing site to the other one. Nothing to do with my project, so I was not responsible for that transfer or anything else. However, if the transfer was not completed as needed there, that would impact the release of my program. Why? Because if there was no testing part there, I could not produce anything to deliver to the customer. So checking interfaces, external dependencies, it's a I can guarantee to you, whatever project that you are working on right now, if you have external dependencies, if you have interfaces there, you're going to find out very soon that this is very critical. Those are a lot of risks that you need to anticipate. Another example, a very simple example from another project that I handled in the past. It was again an EPC project. So we had an area for a customer, for my utility customer, say I need to build a power substation here, a substation here. It was everything brand new. But however, the first thing that I noticed in the area, there was a pipe crossing the land there, because was the pipe was involved in the municipality, because it was a place to go for the water after rain that could go, or the sewage. I don't know remember exactly. But that was clearly say I cannot make a foundation here because there's a pipe crossing that. This pipe needs to be deviated somewhere. You can imagine if you're going to start the work, and then you see, okay, the pipe is here, and then I cannot build until you have this pipe around it, release it, discuss it. Might be weeks or even months, depending what type of involvement that you can have there. So this is quite important for you. Manage interfaces, looking for the points, okay, where your project will get in contact with other one. And that goes, I just mentioned, for shared manufacturing lines. That goes for whatever blocks that you have in the area. It goes if you are expanding something that's existing. It goes for different manufacturing sites that can go there. It can go for even for the product development. For example, for the automotive business, I was developing an air suspension that goes inside of a car. So what's the interface there? Here, dear customer, what's the space I have in the car to fit this part? How is going to be connection between this air suspension and the suspension of the car? Those are small items, but if they are not defined, they are going to create risks for your project. And then if you don't define that, those risks will turn into issues, into delay, extra costs, frustration from different stakeholders. So make sure you take care of your interface. Make sure that you check the interdependencies among your project there. More than one company working in the same area. I can guarantee to you that you're going to have interface to be managed there. Information that you need from the customer. That's an interface that you need to manage in a proper way. When do you need the information to make sure that you can progress with something? When you need the information from your supplier, when we need the information from your customer. Those are critical and those are critical for risk management. Why? Because all those interfaces, there are going to be risks. If you do not do anything and you're going to find out while on you are executing something, those things will hit you hard. And some types of things, and I've seen even in projects that I handled, although depending on how the discussion go, who needs to do what are necessary activities to go around of these things, it can take months. And depending on again the type of activity, that will delay your critical path there. Second point that I can guarantee to you that's going to be a risk if it's not managed well. Mainly for it, that happens very commonly when you have projects that have shared resource. What do I mean by that? For example, in projects that I execute, I have like a quality engineer, but this quality engineer he works in my project and he also works in 3 or 4 other projects there. What's important is to understand when I am asking this product engineer or whatever resource that you have shared there, what needs to be done there, that it's taking into consideration the workload that's in place. Why there? Let me give you a very brief explanation. If there's another video just explaining lead time in more details. If you don't know where is it, send me a message that I can send to you the link. But what's lead time is about? Lead time is the duration to execute something from the moment that you agree until you deliver. It can be a product, can be a service, or anything that you say that you are going to do it. Lead time is based dividing two things. What's called the waiting time, meaning depending on the workload, the work will be sit there waiting. And that will depend also what's called the touch time. What's a touch time? This is the time that you are really executing something. For example, so if you are working, if I ask you, can you create a presentation for me, a PowerPoint presentation for me? And you say, and I ask you, how long do you need to create this presentation? Then you're going to think, oh, you're talking about a presentation, I don't know, with 5 slides and I have an information or whatever. In 2 hours I can handle that. That's easy peasy, right? Yes, that's the touch time, the time that you're going to work to create the slides itself. However, if you have a backlog, a list of a to-do list that's very big with a very high priority, and you say, I ask you, okay, you can do it in 2 hours. Then in the end of the day, I ask you, were you able to do that? And you tell me, no, I had another priority for whatever manager, director, the customer, and I had to work on that one. So although you could have done something in 2 hours, there's another priority and this task is waiting. So that might be that the task, this presentation will be waiting for 2 or 3 weeks before you have the time to work on something like that. So your lead time to deliver the presentation to me will be 3 weeks. But the touch time, how long do you need to really do the work, is only 2 hours. So if you have resources in your team, because very often when you talk with people, how long do you need to do that? They think about, a couple of hours I can solve it. What's the problem? The problem is when they're going to have those couple of hours. That can be, okay, I can do it in a couple of hours. Yeah, but I'm going for a business trip and I'm going to be out for the next 3 weeks. So you're not going to get the work there for, I don't know, for 4 weeks. Or it can be we are going to a holiday. Or it can be a workload, another type of priority. One of the very common source of risks is when you are discussing a timeline, people think about the effort to execute something, and they forget about the workload that will create this backlog, that will create this waiting, that will also compromise your lead time. So that's very important that although depending on the company, you might not have this as transparent as you would like. That's why, for example, if you are working with a Kanban, one of their goals, if you are following a good Kanban method there, is to make sure that the company will make all those kind of between brackets invisible work. It's understood. Why invisible work there? Because sometimes you have someone working 3 projects and they say, ah, I can do that in 1 or 2 days. But then there's a review meeting with managers. There's a technical committee that they need to attend. There's a meeting with the customer. There's a business trip. There's all those kind of stuff that they create work because they are going to take time from your resource, time from your team, and they are going to affect your lead time. So one common source of risk is understanding what's the invisible work that your team there, meaning that you want to understand what's their workload there. So very often, what do I do in a project meeting in a situation like that, where I know that I have shared resource with across several projects? Sometimes I ask, when can you do that? And they say, I can do that this by tomorrow. Are you sure? Is that this by tomorrow is considering also the other tasks that you have to execute among all the other projects or for your department, for your manager, for whatever? For people that's already used to manage this kind of stuff, although they don't have it, for example, as in a Kanban board to make sure that you make this very transparent for everybody. Some people they can manage this very very well, and some people say, oh yeah, actually considering that, yeah, I'll need more time. I've seen even in project team meetings. For example, I've worked with a lead designer a few years ago that we would have customer meetings, and the customer would ask, "When can you do that?" And he asked, "I can do it for next week." But then we would start keep discussing the project. When can you do that? Next week, next week. And by the way, he had a huge things of items that he was planning to do next week. But then I would ask, "Are you sure that you can complete all those things by next week? Don't we need to prioritize something here, dear customer? We cannot do everything at the same time. Simulations, drawings, or whatever you need. What is the first thing that needs to be done? What's the priority list that you're going to follow? Why this is important? First of all, because that's a source of risk. That's going to create problems with your lead time. That create problems with your expectations. You are going to get frustrated customer, frustrated managers. You are going to get frustrated yourself because of the situation that they're always promising something they're never going to deliver. So it's very important that you find a good way to manage it. Again, risk management, that's a source of risk. What is a good risk management process? It's about anticipation. So stuff that usually happens if you talk with other project managers, I have this. We have the same people working on both our projects. You can think about, okay, where do we see here overlaps? Where do we see overlaps for the workload? Some companies they have a kind of portfolio view to make sure that they are managing their team, to make sure that they are managing their team in a decent workload. Some other companies they don't have it, so they start to throw things away. For example, I had in one of my projects in the past, test engineer, very competent person there, very capable guy, very committed that would work a lot. But what happened because he was the most experienced in his department, whatever big issue that would pop up, people would assign him to solve it. So he would work in three different projects, plus all the other stuff. Oh, you have those 3 issues that you need to solve. You are the technical leader for this committee here, blah 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 blah. This is all the invisible work, but that hit directly in what he could do. And then, of course, I will talk with him. Okay, this is manageable. This is not manageable. And for some stuff that say that I would read, hey, this needs to be done. Otherwise, we are going to compromise our deadline here, and a very important deadline that will affect customers and so on. Then he will ask me. Then I need help. How? Escalating this to management. Then I will say, dear management, if we don't have this guy here to execute this task here as a priority because he has to have these 10 other things there in his plate, we are going to delay. And then that was very easy for some of the managers to say, let me be very clear, this is the priority. Because, for example, in this case, they were planning a 2 week training that he would be in a 2 week training. Sorry, we need to rearrange the training. Otherwise, we are missing this important deadline. Again, anticipation. What would happen if I do not anticipate this kind of stuff? If we don't communicate, if you don't have these discussions to try to uncover those hidden works that you have in your team that will affect and hit you bad with your lead time. It would be that he goes into the training and says, shit, I'm going to miss my deadline. I'm going to escalate him. Yeah, but he's in training. Depending on the type of training, okay, the training is in the company, so it's easier to take someone from the training. But depending on the type of the training, oh, this person is traveling. So that's not going to work. Very simple like that. So what's important here? Those two sources of risk that I mentioned, that the interfaces or external dependencies there. And depending how you want to call it, the team workload, hidden work, or shared resource, this is by default, it's always going to be a risk in any type of project that you work on any type of industry that you are going to work on. Of course, the level of the risk can vary, the level of activity, depending on what you need to do, it's going to change it. But if you are feeling, I say, I do not know where to start to identify risks, start by those things. I can guarantee if you have interface with your project, external dependence, this is a risk. This is always a risk that needs to be managed and at least needs to be tracked to confirm that things are okay. If you don't need to do anything, you just okay, go ahead. But sometimes you also need to escalate. Say, hey, I need this to be solved first. Needs to be higher priority, otherwise it will impact my project. And the second one, workload of your team. Again, a lot of companies they work with matrix organization, shared resource. So you have different resource managers. It can be a very complex organization to work with. And it's your job as a project manager to think ahead, to try to anticipate those issues, to bring to light that can be discussed in a timely manner. And then what's a timely manner? When you have time to react for something. Because, and just the example of the guy that was traveling for a training, if I found out that he's traveling later on and then I have to do this in the week that he's traveling, that might be that I don't have anyone that could replace the work. That might be that create all types of different problems, and people will look, hey, project manager, you're not thinking about that. So that's why I mentioned to you in the beginning, I really build a good reputation taking care of those things. And this is like real hardcore project management work. And that's why I'm saying you don't need to be a technical specialist there to manage a project. If you are able to understand the project in this high level overview and understand what needs to be done, then you are going to understand those interfaces, then you are going to extend the external dependence, then you can understand also the variations in the workload with the team members, what you have. And of course, the rest you need to go ahead, find information, get out and talk with people. If you can work and focus on those things, I can guarantee to you that you are going to be able to anticipate risks in a better way. And then, of course, I can guarantee to you that will be a very positive point for your performance as a project manager. That will also add a lot of value for your project and for your organization there. Don't forget, again, this content here is part of the Project Management Summit warm up. Project Management Summit, it's a free event. I'm going to make 3 full classes with exercise to help you to develop yourself into project management. Everything is free. You only need to click in the link here and subscribe. Make sure you don't miss that. And also, don't forget to like and share this video so we can get more people. More people are going to learn project management. And of course, it helps in your relationship, right? Because you're helping me, you're making me happy. So if you have questions, I'm here to support you. And don't forget, of course, if you want more content on project management, every week there's more content on my YouTube channel. Every day there's more content on my Instagram channel. And my Instagram, I have a Q&A box open every day also to support any project management related question that you have. Because if your goal is to develop your project management skills, my goal is to support you in this journey. Thank you and see you soon. Bye.